So now you're relieved of any needs there. We got Jennifer, thank you out, and we got record button pushed. So all that good stuff. But keep up the great work, Jennifer. We're gonna miss you. It's gonna be a sad time without you, but we will carry on because you set a great framework for us. So awesome job. Thank you.
Gosh, Mark, you're gonna make me cry.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's me too, because I'm gonna miss you on my team, but you've been doing great stuff. So thank you. Greatly appreciated. So you brought a lot to our faculty, so amazing. So next week, maybe give us a quick little advertisement for next week because it's a kind of an interesting piece, and people may not understand what you're going to do. So
Okay, so next week I'm disseminating my doctoral scholarly project results, which was based on intervention that we did in EDD 786 around discussions and working on trying to improve the value and engagement of discussion of asynchronous online discussions. So I'm going to share my results and observations from that next week. I'll be at the Tuesday and the Friday session. So, and I invited Dr. Wade to attend both of those also so that she could give her perspective from the faculty lens on what she observed. So, but this week we're talking about feedback, and Dr. Robertson gave us this topic, so thanks. And so the articles or the resources kind of are all across the board on from what is good feedback to do students even read feedback, which there were several studies that said that students actually do. And then to what could make feedback better. Something that was I have just I'll comment on one thing in particular because it made me like it made my eyes get big. But withholding grades until students have proven that they have read your feedback, that is not something that was ever on my radar, but I could see how that would be very effective. So I'm gonna start with that, and then I'll open it up to the rest of you and see what you all thought and what your experiences are with feedback. So thanks for being here.
I hope I'm not the only one who feels this. Well, it's not a good feeling, so I don't hope for anybody else to feel this, but I chronically feel as though I spend a lot of time. I really do. I want students to know that I'm reading their works. I spend a lot of time crafting just the most elegant, well-written feedback. I'm joking, but I do provide a lot of feedback. And then particularly with my undergraduate students, there are too many times when I question, are they looking at it? Because I mean, I can tell in Brightspace if they've, there's a little alert. It says that they've received it or read it or whatever, but that doesn't mean that they've actually gone in and read it. It just means maybe they opened the draft with my comments. And then with the reason I question whether they're looking at my beautiful feedback is because they're making the same, kind of sloppy writing, not following the format of the written work, not citing correctly, all the same things that I commented on in previous assignments. And that is less the case with the progressive. Some courses have the progressive, capstones or doctoral scholarly projects. I'm not talking about Jennifer. Jennifer's amazing with my feedback. But with undergraduates, it's definitely an issue, and it just frustrates me because what am I spending all that time for? I've never thought about doing multimodal. Well, no, that's not true. I have provided video feedback. I used to do that more often than I do now. So that multimodal feedback was something that those resources talked about that was probably worth trying again. Withholding grades, I'm with you, Jennifer. That never crossed my mind, but I can see where that would definitely motivate people to look at the feedback. Well, and not just look at the feedback, but prove that they've incorporated it and understand it. So I appreciate all that you put together. It makes me feel like I'm not the only one in the world who has this issue. So love to hear what other people are experiencing.
I too was really interested in withholding grades until the student can show that they've read the feedback. But not only that, the idea came to me, and you would only want to do this maybe once or twice in a semester. like on something big, but not only show that they responded, they read it, but maybe what their action plan is to improve for the future. Because you can make me regurgitate back what you just said, and that doesn't mean I'm taking to heart and I know what to do different next time, and I plan to do different next time. So I kind of like that idea with, maybe in the beginning, you could do something like allow them, I'm on a whack kick lately with citations. So maybe the first time they could fix it and return it, but then for some big project, you could provide the feedback and withhold the grade and have them give you an action plan. So yeah, I wrote down a lot of notes after I read that article and a couple others, but I wrote down a lot of notes after reading that one. I see potential, but I also see that it could easily be overused.
So I've
Yeah.
used a ungraded approach in a course before. So they were only getting feedback, not even getting a grade, and they did not look at the feedback any more than so. And then they got a grade at the end of the semester. So I guess in some ways I was withholding the grade until the end of the semester. And I don't want to go into details on how that was designed, but I also this semester I moved away a little bit from an ungraded approach, but I have like a tiered approach. So like the first reflection, they do 3 reflections. The first one's worth the fewest amount of points, and then it goes up. In both the second and the third, there's a line on the rubric for incorporated feedback from the previous assessment. And I'd say 50% of the students didn't get those points. I haven't actually totaled it up, but just from, as I was going through them, I should go back there just to have some quantitative feedback. I'd say about 50% missed. There's 5 points for utilizing my feedback because they made the exact same mistake that they did on the first one that I gave them that feedback on the next 2. So those were like easy points. I did one thing that I really appreciated was because I know that this is something I need to work on. We need to be more specific with our feedback. I'm with Whitney though, like I don't want to spend a ton of time when I know that 50% of my students aren't looking at it, but I also want to give good quality feedback. And I think that'll make them more likely to read it. So for those assignments in particular, I say very specifically what you need to do the next time. On your next reflection, you need to, give specific detailed action steps on how you're going to achieve that goal. And I give even an example. And so I am surprised by how few, and I'm also surprised because I allow students to resubmit as often as possible. So if you got 45 out of 50 and you want to do it again, because now you know what you need to do to get the full 50 points. And I have on each assignment, maybe 1 student do that. So I don't know if they're just like, I'm satisfied with an A or a B, like, and that's okay with me for my courses. Now my courses are not in their profession. So I teach in the arts and sciences. So maybe they're like, I did the satisfactory work. I'm good. I'm not going to spend a lot of other time on it. And part of me is like, I can recognize like, that's okay. That's if they're reflecting and they're like intentionally saying, you know what, I need to spend more time and energy other places. So this is all I can give for this course at this time. Like, okay. But it does make me then question, like, how much time do I want to put into it if they aren't really interested in using the feedback to improve? They're okay with just taking the B on the front end of it. So those are some of my thoughts. I'd be curious what other people think.
I have a couple thoughts. Allison, one question on your where you have them give them points to edit or make your revisions from the last time. Is that also in the directions for the assignment or just on the rubric? Because I've discovered with even grad students, they don't always go and look at the rubric because sometimes there'll be something like, oh, there's 5 points for an introduction to your assignment and a summary. So I've started incorporating that into my directions, like, by the way, to get all your points, because they don't always look at the rubric, even though it's right there in the syllabus.
Yes, that is really good feedback. The first time I did it, I realized I don't think people knew that. So I do a video explanation for every assignment and then also the written.
And I realized I did not cover that the first time. So the second time I did, and I would say I got almost the same results, maybe a few more doing it. But I do think I like one of them talked about like the culture of feedback and explaining the purpose and really just making that more a part of the course. I think that's something that I know I need to do. Like every time I do an assignment, or before the assignment, I think I want to build into like, I'm going to be providing feedback on this day. I really encourage you to look at it. I would like you to, review it before the next assignment. And then, as you know, there's points associated with incorporating that feedback. I don't think I do enough of that in my like weekly on emails and discussions with them. So I think I need to build that in more.
Idea. Another comment on the withholding of grades. I didn't really think of that either. However, we sort of do it in capstone and doctoral scholarly projects, although they're a all credit or no credit, but we don't, at least I don't give my students credit for that, mark them complete for that one section until they've made the proper edits that they need, and then I'll go back and mark it as completed. So in a way, we kind of do withhold a grade in a sense for those, but that's just the nature of those assignments. I mean, though, I don't know about just a regular one-time written assignment or discussion board. Plus, then we have to think about how many times do we really want to read those assignments?
Yeah.
Do we have time to keep reading them?
This is April. I have to say, Jeannie, I built that into my class to some extent. And I even have a little preface on my syllabus. You know how we can talk about our teaching philosophy. I tell them I am heavily driven with feedback, and I expect the students to read their feedback. This is in all of my research classes, not so much my stats ones, but I'll tell them, you turn the assignment in, it's expected that you will get individualized feedback. I regard that as a critical teaching moment with individualized feedback. You need to take that into consideration. And I even tell them, as far as withholding grades goes, if I can sense that you are not using your feedback, and if I'm getting, as some of you have mentioned, you're getting the same thing back again and again, and it's clear they're not looking at it, I tell them, it's clear to me that you didn't use any of the previous feedback, and there's really no point progressing with this project. So I will grade this when that feedback is turned in. So it's that, and all future assignments for the research paper are just stopped for that paper until they take it into consideration. I got so frustrated a couple of years ago. It's now a critical, my class is built around that.
Is that, April, like a progressive assignment where they build on it week after week, or is that a one-time paper?
It's a term-long research project, and they'll turn it in little stages. And I even tell them, you guys should pretty much know by the end of the semester, by the time you've these components and slotted them into your paper, that you're getting an A. I mean, if you address the feedback, you are setting yourself up for success.
I love courses that are designed like that, and I don't have the are they reading my feedback issue as much with those types of courses that I teach, but it is with the the one-time white paper or the one-time 3-page essay where they don't have to worry about it after they submit it. That's where I have the challenge.
Yeah, there's not as much motivation, I think, on some of that.
When I started to require drafts so that I could give them feedback, I discovered that students didn't know where to look for the feedback. And they were looking at the original paper that they turned in and didn't see any comments, instead of looking at the paper I returned with feedback.
Yes.
So that was eye-opening, even for second-year students, who I would think would know where to look for things. I realized I need to orient them to where to find the feedback and what to look at. And I write in the overall comments that they should look at the comments in their returned paper, and I write that they should look at the comments in the grading rubric. But I know that some still don't, because I still get the same, just like Whitney was saying, I get the same errors, issues.
Lane, I don't know if you have tried this, but I put a little blurb in there. Thank you fill in your name here for your assignment. There is individualized feedback. Click on course tools, assignments, go to this assignment, open it in Word and go to the review tab and click all markup. Otherwise,
Yes.
you're right.
yes.
They have no idea where to find that.
Mhm.
Yeah, so I started putting that as an announcement in my course so that they could see that.
Oh, sure. Yeah. I put it right in the feedback box with their
Well,
grade.
Yes.
Our first year students or students who are new to the college, what is folks' sense of their familiarity with that review tab? Because even at the graduate level, Jeannie and I still find it helpful to orient students like, you know, the review tab, you click on markup, you look in the margin, you can reply to the, you know, kind of just walk them through. But what is it like straight out of high school or if they're transferring in? What have you noticed about their familiarity with it?
They don't have any familiarity with it because I used to do the exact same thing. I'd say, here's how you get your feedback, open this in Word, you know, click here, click there. I even put screenshots. And this was an email I sent to students in addition to an announcement. And then I would follow up by saying, if you have any questions or if it doesn't seem to work, come see me. And I would still have students like 5, 6 weeks later say, well, I never could figure out how to see your feedback.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what's that old saying? You can lead a horse to water, but the only option is drowning him. You know, you just can't make people do things. But yeah, they do not, if for all as tech savvy as they claim to be, they don't know the basics of using some of these very fundamental programs, I find.
But
Can
I
I-
think part of it is like April said too, sorry, Mark,
yeah.
about where to look in Brightspace, because some places in Brightspace you can see certain things, and some places you can't, you know, so that I'm not even like, when you just said that, I was writing that down, April. Course tools assignments, because I think if they just look at the feedback part, they can't necessarily see everything. And can they see the rubric under the course tools assignments when they go that direction?
I think the rubric is with the grade and the feedback box. That's in one place. And then the returned documents are in the assignments under course tools. And I have had a ton of students in, you know, level 1 and 200 classes say just what Meg did. They've never heard of that. They've never had a professor do that with them. They had no idea.
So
how to get
April, can I
Yeah.
ask you a favor?
Sure.
I would love a video showing that we could put in the survival guide and put in the announcements on Brightspace at the beginning of the year in all the workshops. Would you mind recording a video to show them step by step how to get feedback in your class?
Yeah, no problem. Sure.
That'd be awesome, because then they hear somebody's voice other than mine. So great. We'll work together and get that done so that we just have a standard video that you can point students to and say, go here.
Sure.
Awesome. Thank you.
Sure.
Meg, can I hear more about your action plan that you have? I don't know if it's all of your students or just just some of them do to demonstrate how they are going to incorporate your feedback.
It was just a spur of the moment idea. But you know how somebody said, you know, have them prove that they've read your feedback. Okay, well, I can say, well, you told me my grammar was bad, for instance, or I can say I didn't have as many resources as I should, but that's not the same thing as saying, I see I needed to have 5 resources. So next time I'm going to make sure I know what the requirements of the paper are, and I'll plan to, I mean, I'm just saying, take it one step further and this could even be a response that they give you in Brightspace or whatever, so that you have kind of a recording of it. But just to take it one step further beyond, I read the first line, so I can prove to you that I read it. It's more of, how am I going to incorporate this into my future work to improve? And actually, I was busy writing notes down. I teach the nursing professionalism course, which is a 100 level course. So, you know, they're brand new college students. This is with traditional students. And part of professionalism is taking ownership, taking responsibility, understanding feedback that you've been giving, and coming up with a plan to improve. And so I was just writing notes that that might be something we can incorporate in this course, which unfortunately is viewed as fluff. It's not real nursing, which we found out in our course evaluations. But that might be a really good thing to do, to say, this is what a professional does. That you get feedback that shows you need to improve. Now, you tell me how you're going to improve. That's what I was thinking. I haven't ever done it, but that's what I was alluding to.
Meg, I love that idea. I was just reading an article about expert clinicians and how they develop as expert clinicians by, you know, reviewing everything that they've done and considering how they can improve. And so having students actually reflect and write, how are you going to improve in future assignments based on your feedback on this assignment, would be a great way to help them to develop as clinicians.
I would love a copy of that article or a link, Lane.
Sure, I'll get that.
Yeah, me too. Send me that if you would. My thought, similar to probably the same as Meg's, is maybe I should build in little, you know, point value low, but please submit right after you submit your written work and I give you feedback. The next thing to submit is a short reflection that, first of all, summarizes my feedback. And second of all, demonstrates how you're going to apply it not only to the rest of your coursework, but also in your professional life. I think that, would that be any different though from what Allison, you do with your line in your rubric where you award them points for saying that they did look at your feedback and it made no difference?
Well, it would be more explicit, you know, because sometimes I realize, wow, well, this was improved, but I'm not sure if that's because of my feedback or if you just did a better job here, because the other part of my feedback you did not use. So at least if you ask them to very specifically reflect on it, then I think that can be helpful. I'm trying to think of, as I'm sure all of you, you know, this course that I teach has a lot of writing, a lot of discussion boards already. So I'm already reading and providing a lot of feedback. So I'm thinking maybe it's the discussion board the week after that it's due. I ask them to do some reflection in that discussion board post, as opposed to another assignment. Maybe there's just like a part 3 of discussion board. Like this week you submitted your assignment and I posted grades on Monday. Now, this week, tell me something you learned from reviewing my feedback and what your plan is to incorporate in the future. Something like that, that would be, again, low points and not a lot of time for me to grade. Because honestly, I don't always know, you know, even when I award points, I'm like, well, I give them the points if they fix what the problem was, but they don't have to explain or articulate, yes, I read your feedback and that was really helpful and now I'm doing this differently. Sometimes I think they just did a better job on the assignment, or they took more time, or they read the instructions better, or whatever it might have been. So I like your idea. I just am hesitant to, you know, put in another written assignment in there for you to read, but maybe if there's a way to do it, incorporate it with something else that's happening in your discussion board or something, that might be. And in our leadership course, we talk a lot about giving and receiving constructive feedback. So I feel like we talk about this all the time, which is why I find it challenging that in this course specifically, where this is not just, obviously I want you to incorporate feedback, but it's also a part of the content of the course. And I still have students that struggle with that. So I want to make that connection more clear to them when I'm going over that content, of explaining, oh, this is a great opportunity to incorporate, we've talked about how you receive constructive feedback. Here's an opportunity to actually put that into practice. And what would that look like?
Allison, as you were talking, I came up with an idea that might solve that problem of one more thing to read or one more something that looks like one more assignment. But what if on the next assignment there's a summary at the beginning or the end where the student says, I'm incorporating this feedback from my previous assignment, and this is how I'm using it. This is how I used it to inform this assignment, right? So that way it's not one more thing that you all have to read and address, but it can be, they can, what is that? Push it forward, right?
I love that. I love that. I'd even like, I don't know if this is too much. I'd even love for them to highlight it in the paper because it helps me as the reader. All right, show me where you think you incorporated this feedback.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Yeah. But maybe, I mean, it depends on the assignment. Obviously, if you're trying to develop a professional paper that's going to would be more outwardly facing, but for these types of reflections, I think it would make sense where they could, do their pre-summary and then they could demonstrate, show where they're incorporating that feedback. It's a little selfish on my part too.
Well, and just one thought I had as I was listening to everyone too, because then I got to thinking about, well, what about the students like Jennifer that are really good about incorporating their feedback and do read all of their feedback and take it to heart? Like, are we demeaning those students by adding extra busy work to them? Probably. Like, I don't know, because is it one of those deals where because of some, we're making everyone do something else, kind of like when you have an employee that doesn't do what they're supposed to and they change the policies for everybody because some employees aren't following it. So just the devil's advocate part that just came up in my head.
I think that's a good point. And I think it could be for those that do a really good job, like it probably wouldn't take, I mean, it wouldn't take them very long to do it. And I do think reflection is a helpful tool for everybody. So I hope that it wouldn't feel like penalizing because the students that do it naturally will be able to do it really easily, and get those points really easily. The others are going to struggle maybe or be more challenged by it. But I definitely agree with the sentiment that we don't want to be penalizing the students that do it well naturally or, always incorporate that feedback. And maybe you just do it once and once they can graduate from that requirement once they've done it or demonstrated that they can do it. I don't know. Those are just some good things to think about. I'm curious with the multiple, go ahead.
Oh, this is Susie. So since I'm just getting back into grading papers, I have to agree with the fact that I don't think students are reading feedback. But I did one assignment this semester, and I'm not sure if this would work. I almost wondered if the students should do their own self-assessment if I have a checklist and they're kind of grading their own work. I don't know if that would work or not, but it is frustrating to spend all this time and you just know they're not doing their feedback. So have any of you used kind of a self-assessment idea?
There's a lot of evidence around that's a positive thing. You would want them to do it after, like they need to turn it into you first. So, and then they could go back and assess. So that way they're not fixing it. And then as they go along, but there's a lot of support around that. That's a really good practice. Go ahead, Meg.
I think if students took it seriously, it would be an excellent practice. But I think this kind of and I have done this, but I think this falls kind of in the same realm as your peer evaluations. I'm not sure that students really understand the very deep meaning of doing that, and they just give everybody, including themselves, really good grades because they've done everything. And I kind of think that sometimes, so you turn in this assignment, you already think it's really good, or you wouldn't turn it in probably. And so then you would go through this checklist and you give yourself all these really good grades or mark off that you did this, but you really didn't. So I think at least when I've done that before, I haven't really provided the guidance to how you honestly appraise this assignment, because I don't think students took it very seriously. Just like I don't think they very frequently take their peer evals very seriously. They want everybody to like them, so everybody gets good grades.
I
Okay,
can
so
totally
I'm,
see that being the case, Meg. Part of me thinks, well, they should just be using the rubric as a self-assessment before, to make sure it's all covered before they turn it in. So I don't know how much more detailed, maybe we need a really detailed rubric so that they can ensure everything is, how it should be. But I like the idea on the surface though, Susie.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to have some input about that. I'm getting a lot of great ideas.
So I am, while we've been on this call, I've been exploring how my students could be seeing their feedback. So, because I have a test student, I have that in there. So I don't know if you guys can see this screenshot in the chat, but when I go to the grade book as a student, it says right there, like in the grade book, view inline feedback. And when I click on that, that is their document with my comments. So I know, April, you were talking about that they're going somewhere and finding the paper they turned in that you marked up and then looking for all markup. I don't actually download and mark up their paper. So maybe that's the difference. I am providing comments within Brightspace. So, I can highlight, I can underline, I can strike through, and then I can put those little bubble comments. So that's what I've been using. And this is where I've been directing my students to go. So that's why this conversation has made me think like, oh, maybe I haven't even been telling them the right place to go. And this is why they're losing all the points. But based on what I'm looking here, students can see my inline feedback from there. So I'm assuming that that's kind of two different models that we're talking about. Is somebody
Well, I wonder
clarify?
if the would, yeah, I wonder if the attachment would show up in that same spot. Like if you just attach, that's, like how I think, I know that's how I would do it. Like do the feedback in Word, then attach the feedback. But I always say in the comments, please see attached, and then spell them through the whole, go to Word, open a preview tab, all markup.
Got it.
But does it show there? I wonder does it show that they have an attachment if it was one there?
Well, I can go put in an attachment and check and I'll get back to you.
Okay.
I'm guessing yes, but I'm not 100% sure.
I think in that instance, it would be in the tool, like in the assignment tool. They would have to go there to that assignment for if you've added an attachment.
And a lot of my undergraduate research students do these in small groups. So I download it once, I make all the comments in the document, and then I can just upload that with the blurb about how to find it to everyone in the group. And they can even upload that back up to Google if they're working on it all spontaneously in Google. So that's worked for me because I have groups, but I realize not a lot of people probably have groups for some of these types of assignments.
I used to do it that way, but moved to these inline comments just because then the student doesn't have to, it's less clicks for the student. So just to try and make it more accessible, but.
Yeah, I'll do those if it's just one student's paper and I'm giving feedback to them, because yes, ease is critical, especially if they're undergraduate students.
Can students reply to your little bubble comments in the Brightspace inline feedback? Oh,
See, that's the bummer. They can't, if they can't even respond to anything in their feedback. Like Brightspace needs to do an update there. So that way you can have an ongoing conversation. Cause otherwise, if they do have, if they need a clarifying question, they have to email you, right? Yeah, it should almost move into a chat-like format at that point. But Brightspace isn't there yet.
I was curious about the multiple modalities that they talked about. Or if people are using, I'm with Whitney, I have explored using video feedback on some assignments. I have didn't really see any significant difference when I gave feedback that way. So due to my workflow, it's easier for me to do typed comments. But I'm curious if others have had success with like a video thread or something other than the video. I don't know if that would be any faster for me or not, but I know within Brightspace there is just an audio. For me, when I'm giving the comments, I find that I want to show them directly on the paper where it is I'm talking. So with a video or with a video or audio thread, I feel like I'm saying like, okay, in your third paragraph in that third sentence, but maybe I still put those comments in. And then at the end, I do like a quick audio thread that says, great job on this. Here's what I really want you to focus on next time or something like that. I don't know if anybody has found anything that works well and efficiently. Those are my two criteria that I'm always looking for.
I had a question because in the power of multimodal feedback, they gave an example of a teacher who used Notability to record a one-on-one session, and I wondered if if we can do that. Can I use Notability? And I mean, I use Notability to mark up papers. Can I record while I'm marking up so I can be explaining what my thoughts are as I'm marking it up? Does anybody know? Because I think that would be helpful to me.
Mark, do you know? Can you record
sorry,
in Notability?
I wasn't listening. I'm sorry. I was working on another challenge that Lane sent me, and so I didn't catch that question. Sorry about that.
You should be able to, just
Yes.
like when the students do the audio recording of faculty members at the top of the page of Notability, there's a little microphone that you hit, and each time you write or add a comment, it will automatically bookmark where you wrote that information. So when the students get your audio recording with the notes, it will go through and take them to the very specific spot that you're talking about.
But do they have to have Notability to see that?
Yes.
Okay, because like grad students, they don't have iPads.
Yet. Right.
Okay.
Did I answer your question, Lane?
Yeah, I just need to explore that more. Thank you.
Yeah, and I can show you how to do that, or anyone how to do that, whenever you guys are willing.
Okay, great.
Thanks for covering for me, Spencer. I appreciate that. And here comes the link that Lane was looking for. So,
oh, thanks, Mark.
You bet.
So one of the other things that came up that I'll be honest, those research articles, I did not get through all of those. So kudos to those that read all those already. But just the quick one from the Center for Innovative Teaching and Learning, Northern Illinois. I like that one because it was nice and easy to digest quickly. But the hold one-on-one conferences. So I teach online. I'm curious if others utilize that, and have you had success with that? Do you do it just with one paper afterwards? I typically have maybe 75 students in a course, 3 sections of 25. It seems like a lot to do, and I'm curious if it's how effective it is. So I'm wondering if anybody has attempted that.
It's for me, it was always like we would go through stages, right? It would be written first, then a video, and then if it still wasn't computing, I was practically requiring them. Like I'm available at these times, pick one. And we were meeting, virtually over Zoom or whatever and going over it together. And then once we did that once, they're more likely to then reach out to you in advance of something as they're working on it to get clarification, and which to me shows them that they're actually starting to take it in and they're thinking critically and they're really trying to utilize it and implement. So, but no, there's no way you can do it with everybody. You just can't.
Right.
Yeah.
I like that idea of just having it, if somebody's struggling with incorporating the feedback, just then reach out to those students. Because I will say, it probably is just a handful of students, even though not all of them are incorporating all my feedback, they're still doing well enough on the assignments that I'm not super concerned. So I like offering that or requiring that for some of my students who are struggling.
So Jennifer, you said you did that kind of as a third step, right? And I'm wondering, I struggle with when to do that because I have a class that's a 6-week course and they write a paper and I give them, the feedback on their draft and then they turn in their final paper and then I have met with them if they were not successful at that point with incorporating my feedback. I've asked them to meet with me one-on-one, but then I feel like
that's tough.
I'm waiting until they've already finished the assignment to then have them redo it again, which I guess is okay.
Yeah, I guess if there was somebody where I was really nervous about their rough draft, if I was really like, wow, they're so off the mark on their rough draft, I would probably request that, like, and under the guise of, I want you to be successful, right? I want this final paper to be really solid. And so let's just get together and talk about it. But yeah, that 6 weeks isn't a lot of time to do those extra steps. Yeah.
I don't know if anybody just saw this, but Sonia put something in chat about adding release conditions for their next activity. I've done that before, not for feedback, but that is very effective. Can't get to the next thing until you do. I mean, you literally can't get to the next thing.
Great idea, Tanya.
What if you open the entire course at the beginning? Can you still
I was going to say
have
the
them?
same thing.
Yeah.
That's a challenge, I think, because I don't want to disadvantage some students who have other life things happening where they do work ahead or do some parts, they might be working ahead on something, but they're at another part in the course, which my course allows for that. So I don't know how that would work for an open course. Like I think Whitney and I have a similar setup. But I really do like the idea of the next assignment that is similar in nature to the assignment in which I gave that feedback, having that be a part of, like, that's the first page abstract is you talking about what feedback you used for this assignment. That I think will work well. And I'm excited about that. It'll also make it easier for me to grade and then them able to see, like, that is where this line on the rubric is coming from. Because otherwise, sometimes I struggle with, yeah, you tweak this here, but not here. How many points should I give you for using some of the feedback, but not all of it? So I think that'll help me a lot.
I'm definitely going to incorporate that as well. Having that little abstract or whatever be part of, the second and on assignment. So then would the rubric for that be a little different than for the first assignment because they wouldn't have that abstract? And Allison, if you could share your language with me on the points for incorporating and reflecting on feedback.
Yeah, it is different. I will say it's not great. I will send it to you. I'm sure you can, your eloquentness that you use for your feedback, you could probably adapt it, but I'll send you what I have been using. I just add one more criterion on that rubric and I'll send it to you.
I guess it would also be really helpful to have that be an indicator of who is able to look at your inline feedback or use the review tab for feedback if you've got that assignment or that reflection abstract piece early in a course.
Allison, I'd
Comment?
like that as well, if you would send that.
Oh, so this is Susie. I have another question.
Will do.
So if I have, let's say I have 8 students, and let's say 6 out of the 8 students did average or above average, and 2 students really did poorly. Couldn't you apply some of these ideas just to those 2 students, or do you have to treat all students fairly and have all students do these release conditions or do this feedback assessment on their own?
I think you'd absolutely make it student individualized to the student. I
Yeah,
think
you
so.
can set up the release conditions so they apply to specific grades on assignments.
So that wouldn't seem like preferential treatment if 6 were good to go and 2 really needed to do these extra things?
I would say if they hadn't met the criteria to move forward and you make
Okay.
that criteria explicit, then you're fine.
And
Okay,
it's almost like requiring somebody to go see Marlon, you know, as a writing referral, or to go to the math tutor because they never get their math questions correct. I think if you use it developmentally, I think we can use these resources for the people that would benefit from them.
so maybe a statement in my syllabus about something about developmentally required resources, or, maybe a statement kind of supporting that in my syllabus, because I don't want to get to the end of the semester and have these students complain that they were treated unfairly. Okay. I'll think about a good statement.
All right. Well, this one went fast. We're at our 12 o'clock time frame. Great conversation to all of you. I really appreciate it. It must have been a needed topic, Whitney. So I don't think you were alone. Great. So I
Thank
did
you.
put the Qualtrics survey up, and so don't forget to do your Qualtrics survey. From what I'm seeing from numbers, it looks like everybody's doing their stuff. So keep up the great work. I hope the system's working as well for you as it seems to be for me. So thanks very much, and we'll talk to you all next week. Have a great one, everybody.
Thanks,
Thank you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.